Tonight,
House Resolution 24, impeaching Donald John Trump, President of the United States, for high crimes and misdemeanors.
the impeachment of President Trump, take two. We're on Capitol Hill as House lawmakers decided if the president is guilty of inciting an insurrection. Plus,
every vaccine dose that is sitting in a warehouse rather than going into an arm could mean one more life lost.
the push to speed up coronavirus vaccines in America. And a look at persecution against Christians in Nigeria. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
A history-making vote in the House. Good evening and welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Tara Mergener. Today, the House moving ahead with the second impeachment of President Trump, marking the first time a president has faced impeachment not just once, but twice.
That's right, Tara. And in the run-up to tonight's vote, lawmakers from both sides of the aisle debated the merits of the article to impeach, which lays responsibility on President Trump for inciting an insurrection and encouraging his supporters to march to the Capitol, which resulted in the deadly riot just 1 week ago today.
Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson has been tracking the proceedings and joins us now from Capitol Hill. Abigail, calls to impeach began pretty much as soon as the riots began last Wednesday. What has been the main argument from those backing impeachment?
Well, House Democrats and a few Republicans hold President Trump directly responsible for what happened, the attack on the Capitol last week, and argue that even though he has just days left in office, they want to hold him accountable. Here's what House Speaker Nancy Pelosi had to say today on the House floor.
We know that we faced enemies of the Constitution. We know we experienced the insurrection that violated the sanctity of the people's capital and attempted to overturn the duly recorded will of the American people. And we know that the President of the United States incited this insurrection, this armed rebellion against our common country. He must go. He is a clear and present danger to the nation that we all love.
And these were sentiments that were echoed by many lawmakers as the arguments carried out throughout today.
Abigail, while a majority of Republicans are against impeachment, several, including at least one notable House GOP leader, believe the president committed an impeachable offense. Abby?
That's right, John. Unlike the last articles of impeachment, this time around, there are a handful of Republicans in support of this. But the majority of Republicans, including House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, argue that this is only going to fuel the flames and further divide our country, and that we need to be lowering everyone's temperature right now. Take a look at his view.
A vote to impeach would further divide this nation. A vote to impeach will further fan the flames of partisan division. Most Americans want neither inaction nor retribution. They want durable, bipartisan justice. That path is still available, but is not the path we are on today. That doesn't mean the president is free from fault. The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters.
And McCarthy would actually like to see President Trump censured instead of impeached.
Abby, do we know yet when the Senate will take up impeachment?
Well, the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he will not reconvene the Senate until January 19th, which would set the trial to begin in the first weeks of Biden's presidency. And I spoke with Democrat Senator Chris Coons today and asked him why Congress is pushing to impeach President Trump when he already will leave office just a week from now. And here's what he had to say.
As you know, the impeachment vote today in the House is bipartisan. And frankly, that's because we're in unprecedented times, at least since our own Civil War of 160 years ago. We have a president who incited, organized, and then pointed at the Capitol of the United States, an angry mob which overran our Capitol. Don't take my word for it. Listen to Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney, who very forcefully yesterday said President Trump deserves to be impeached and removed from office because of his actions last Wednesday. In recent days, our president, had a chance to show some remorse, to urge his supporters to be peaceful, to say that this was all a mistake. He has done none of that. He continues to fuel this baseless rumor, this conspiracy theory that somehow he won in a landslide and the election was stolen.
What would you like to see from the Biden administration in the first 100 days?
A competence in responding to a tragic nationwide public health event. In the 2 months since the election, President-elect Biden has spent almost every day getting briefed on the pandemic, getting briefed on the Russian hack that our intelligence and security leaders revealed just a few weeks ago, and preparing to make sure that he can keep us as a nation stronger, safer, and healthier. That's going to require better coordination between the federal and state governments and local health officials than we saw in 2020. That's going to require a lot of hard work. Operation Warp Speed has done a great job at helping deliver effective vaccines to the American people and millions of doses. But we are falling far short of the vaccination targets that we need to hit to get out of this pandemic that all of us are sick and tired of and want to move past. So what I expect to see in the first 100 days is pandemic relief, those $2,000 stimulus checks that both President Trump and Democratic leaders supported at the end of last year, to see another round of relief for state and local governments, for small businesses, for schools, daycares, skilled nursing facilities, and a real focus on rebuilding our alliances around the world and strengthening us as we confront a more aggressive Russia and China, and strengthening us here at home by reinvesting.
After last week's event, do you feel safe at the Capitol?
I am more grateful than ever for the men and women of the Capitol Police, who many of whom risked their lives, 2 of whom gave their lives last Wednesday. Officer Brian Sicknick was bludgeoned to death with a fire extinguisher by one of the rioters, and I pray for him and his family. And Officer Howie Liebengood, who was well known to me and all of us who worked in or still work in Russell Senate Office Building, one of the warmest and most engaging people I've met in a decade in Washington. Moving forward, I am concerned. I'm concerned that there are millions of Americans who are still believing President Trump's misinformation about the election, and that gives me concern about our safety and security. And I recognize the resources needed, the leadership and the planning needed to keep the Capitol and the members of Congress and our staff and families safe is going to require prompt and thorough investigations and more investment.
And I've heard reports of many Republicans and Democrats saying that their lives have been threatened since last week and are very fearful with today's impeachment vote and next week's inauguration. John, Tara.
All right, Abby, thank you very much. Here now, David Brody, CBN chief political analyst. David, in a letter to his colleagues this afternoon, Mitch McConnell said he has, quote, not made a final decision on how I will vote and intend to listen to the legal arguments when they are presented to the Senate. What do you make of that?
Looks like we're having some technical difficulties with David's audio. We're going to come back right after this break.
To have sex before you marry is a bad idea.
Don't tell me there's no such thing as gun violence.
That just depends on your definition of when life begins.
Watch Dan and Dale tackle trending topics that test your faith on the next Faith Wire, Monday night at 9:30. The Global Lane takes you around the world, providing facts over fiction.
What might rising trade and geopolitical tensions mean for you on the home front?
With over 45 years of experience, award-winning journalist Gary Lane brings you the truth from a global angle.
What about the issue of immigration?
World news analysis you won't see anywhere else.
And it's all right here on the Global Lane.
Watch The Global Lane, Thursday night at 9:30.
All right, let's go now to David Brody, CBN chief political analyst. David, in a letter to his colleagues this afternoon, Mitch McConnell said he has, quote, not made a final decision on how I will vote, and I intend to listen to the legal arguments when they are presented to the Senate. What do you make of that?
Well, Tara, John, I think it's a typical Mitch McConnell, which is keep your options open. And the truth of the matter is he's probably not sure right now how he's going to vote. There is a sense, more than a sense, he's clearly frustrated with Donald Trump. And he wants this marriage, if you will, to end, which it will end in about, 7 days or so. But this may be a vehicle for Mitch McConnell, many other Republicans, especially in the Senate, to say good riddance to Donald Trump, and would, at that point, he would, in essence, not be able to run again in 2024 if the Senate convicts him. Of course, there's a lot of constitutional legal arguments back and forth whether or not you can actually impeach a private citizen at that point, because most likely this trial, when it comes, would come after the president leaves office.
Leader McConnell, David, is also publicly saying he won't convene the Senate early for an impeachment trial, which means the trial coincides with getting Joe Biden's nominees through the Senate. David, a two-part question for you. How does that complicate Biden's agenda? And a follow-up, and his pledge to help unite and heal the country?
Well, it complicates it massively. And this whole idea of unity by the Democrats. Look, if you wanted unity by the Democrats, or the Democrats wanted unity, they wouldn't go ahead and impeach the president and want him thrown out of office. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, the situation is already volatile. And so now they're going to go ahead and try to impeach the president, and that's exactly what they're going to do. So there's all sorts of problems with that. But I think ultimately Mitch McConnell will have a decision to make. I can tell you this, that ultimately I think Mitch McConnell probably will, my sense is he'll probably vote to convict, but we'll see.
Okay, David, President Trump today did call for no violence ahead of the inauguration a week from today. Is it too little too late?
Well, that's what a lot of people are going to say. You know, once again, was he, and I've said this before, but I'll just be clear, was he fanning the flames? Well, of course, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that Donald Trump and his incendiary rhetoric was part of the problem here. Donald Trump won't admit that, but I think, you know, the casual observer, even the Trump supporter, can realize, you know, that he was fanning the flames for sure. And then what happened was some violent, punk, crazy people, fringe, MAGA, decided to take him up on the offer. And when I say take him up on the offer, not that he actually offered it, but they read into that what they wanted to read into that. And this is what happens when you have crazy folks out there, not just on the right, but on the left as well.
All right, CBN chief political analyst David Brody. David, we always appreciate your insight. Thanks for sticking around after that technical difficulty.
Thanks, guys.
All right, well, a major show of force right here in Washington, D.C., which will look more like a war zone in the coming days.
That's right, John. 20,000 National Guard troops will be stationed in the nation's capital for extra protection during Joe Biden's inauguration 1 week from today. CBN national security correspondent Eric Phillips here now with more. Eric.
Tara and John, Brad Bowman with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies calls this a moment of truth. He says, either you are on the side of the Constitution or you're not. And he says that line of division may lead us into worse territory than we've seen so far. Security in the nation's capital grows tighter by the day. National Guard troops in and around the U.S. Capitol literally around the clock, resting when they can, as shown in this picture taken by a CBN News photographer. Now word that troops guarding the Capitol building will be armed beyond the protective gear they've been carrying. That step concerns national security strategist Brad Bowman.
I do worry about violence. I absolutely do. I do worry about lethal force in our nation's capital in the hands of National Guardsmen, but they are trained for this. The last thing we would want, right, I would think, is to put those men and women in uniform between our Constitution and insurrectionists and not give them the tools they need to fulfill their mission and protect themselves.
The Secret Service is organizing the massive effort to protect the city now and prepare for inauguration security. That will include some 20,000 National Guard troops, plus thousands of police and tactical officers. A tight net being established around downtown D.C.
Individuals entering the perimeter may be subject to screening and asked to describe their essential business, so be prepared to do that.
Security also tightening across the country, given credible reports of threats and protests against state houses in all 50 states that could begin this weekend. Back in the nation's capital, intelligence has revealed threats of execution against lawmakers approving the impeachment of President Trump. Bowman says an FDD colleague is raising a major red flag.
He's saying just in the last few days that what he's seen in the United States looks very much like a pre-insurgency dynamics that he's observed in countries like Iraq and Afghanistan. Be very, very careful what you're doing, because it could get much, much worse.
Bowman points to Tuesday's memo from the Joint Chiefs of Staff to the U.S. military, calling January 6th a, quote, direct assault on the U.S. Congress, and reminding them of their oath to support and defend the Constitution.
Is one of the most important documents in years that I think people will be reading decades or maybe 100 years from now.
This afternoon, the president released a statement saying, quote, there must be no violence, no law breaking, and no vandalism of any kind. And he went on to call on all Americans to help ease tensions and calm tempers. John and Tara.
Thanks for that sobering report, Eric. CBN national security correspondent Eric Phillips. Well, to the coronavirus crisis, more than 9 million Americans have now received at least one dose of the coronavirus vaccine, according to the CDC. It comes as states and the federal government push to ramp up distribution after a much slower rollout than expected.
You know, we're holding way too many vaccine doses back. We're in a crisis. And what people are saying is, let's get those doses out to people. We've got to start getting people vaccinated.
Reversing course here, the Trump administration now plans to release the second dose of vaccine sets, making already distributed shots immediately available. The move comes as the federal government urges states to get people 65 and older vaccinated as soon as possible. Meanwhile, coronavirus deaths just hit another high, more than 4,300 in one 24-hour period. To date, more than 380,000 Americans have been killed by the virus. Confirmed cases have now reached 23 million.
The fight of religious freedom will show you one place Christians face the threat of violence on a daily basis when we come back.
Want to be a part of a community that inspires your spiritual growth while winning prizes? The all-new MyCBN app. Connect with the community for prayer and encouragement. Track and set spiritual goals. Enjoy conversation starters with friends and family. And collect points to win prizes. The all-new MyCBN app. A great place to belong. Download the app at cbn.com/mobile. Grow, connect, have fun. The all-new MyCBN app.
On the home front.
Thanks for joining us for CBN's On the Home Front, where we highlight what the men and women of America's military do to defend our country. CBN honors the men and women in our military with an initiative called Helping the Home Front. It partners with churches across the country to meet the needs of their military families, from repairing homes to wiping out medical bills for wounded veterans.
Watch On the Home Front today at 2:30.
Too often, we carry baggage from our past. You know what it's like. It affects everything and everyone in our lives. It's always there, weighing us down and keeping us from achieving true happiness. But do you know God never meant for us to be trapped in the past? You can be free of your baggage. Learn how God's forgiveness leads to changed lives and new beginnings. Call the 700 Club.
Welcome back. Despite a national focus on racial justice over the last 9 months, pastors have become increasingly reluctant to preach on race. That is according to a newly released survey from Lifeway Research. It finds 74% of pastors say their congregation would welcome a sermon on racial reconciliation based on data collected toward the end of 2020. That is down more than 25% from 2016. Back then, pastors said about 90% of their congregations would welcome a sermon on race. The data comes from a survey of more than 1,000 pastors nationwide. Well, for more than a decade, the U.S. has been raising alarms about religious persecution in Nigeria.
And after yet another round of deadly attacks against Christians, their concerns are still growing. Here's CBN's Jennifer Wishon with more.
For 5 Christian congregations in 5 different cities in northern Nigeria, the new year began with sorrow as congregants mourned the murder of loved ones and desecration of their churches. And for more on this, we're joined by Commissioner Frederick Davey, who sits on the U.S. Commission for International Religious Freedom. Commissioner, take us back to last month. Christians in northern Nigeria were preparing to celebrate the Christmas holiday. What happened?
Well, unfortunately, militant Islamist groups in northern Nigeria escalated attacks against Christians in the final weeks of the year in a campaign, it seems, to terrorize Christian communities and enforce their own vision of an Islamic caliphate in the region. In predominantly Christian village PME, Boko Haram militants invaded on Christmas Eve in an attack that killed 7 people, burned at least 1 church, and abducted an evangelist, Bulus Yakura. In Garkida, Boko Haram fighters burned 3 churches on Christmas Eve in an attack that left at least 5 people dead and 5 more missing. And then there were 3 churches destroyed the day after Christmas in Tushanalade, in Kiritu, and in Debiro.
We know that similar attacks occurred the year before, tragically around the same time. Could this have been prevented? Were there any warning signs?
Yes, we think these attacks are preventable in that Boko Haram itself warned it would target Christians in attacks this Christmas, and that's exactly what happened, as I have outlined in a message claiming responsibility for an attack that killed 27 people in Niger on December 13th. Boko Haram leader Shekau promised more attacks on Christians as the Christmas season progressed. USURF released a press statement on December 17th highlighting this threat and urging the U.S. to pressure Nigeria to increase protection of Christian communities and holy sites as Christmas approached. However, these pleas went unheeded. So yes, these attacks are preventable if the Nigerian government would simply take them more seriously and take the measures they need to take to protect these communities and others.
You mentioned Boko Haram, certainly a branch of ISIS that is gaining steam in northern Nigeria. What is their ultimate goal in that region?
They want to impose their vision of an Islamic state, an Islamic caliphate in the region. And they clearly believe doing that means not only attacking and destroying Christian assemblies, but killing and abducting Christian leaders. But in addition to that, they are using, you have the use of blasphemy laws by the Sharia courts that are state sanctioned in Nigeria, where people are being given very harsh sentences for what these Sharia courts consider to be blasphemy.
Many grave issues to stay on top of. And Commissioner Davey, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your work on this issue.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
And thank you, Jennifer. The pen is mightier than the sword. Details of a heartfelt tribute on Capitol Hill next on Faith Nation.
Are you suffering from feeling tired or worn out during the day? Can you not turn off your brain at night? You are not alone. Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, and I've partnered with the Christian Broadcasting Network, and we're gonna bring you some unbelievable information that you can use tonight to get a better night's rest.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Protect Your Sleep today.
Nutrition, exercise, essential oils, weight loss, and more. It's Healthy Living with Lori Johnson.
Talk about what's in this.
Join CBN health reporter Lori Johnson to get the latest information from today's top health experts.
This is fantastic.
Find out what you need to know to live a healthier life. Watch Healthy Living, Tuesday night at 9:30.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
A Millsburg Falls man coming.
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes too, and so much more. Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon. It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
And finally tonight, a sign of support literally at the United States Capitol following last week's deadly riot.
And it comes in an unlikely place. The walls of the basement tunnels that weave their way through the House and Senate complex. There, Capitol Police are receiving heartfelt letters of support following that violence last Wednesday. The notes are coming from Hill staffers as well as lawmakers, many thanking the Capitol Police for working to keep them safe from the rioters who forced their way into Hill offices and both the House and Senate chambers. Nice to hear.
Yeah, some touching and colorful notes, personal notes and artifacts, and nice to find some hope in the headlines, Tara.
Yeah, a little support is much needed, I'm certain. Well, that's going to do it for Faith Nation. Thank you so much for joining us.
We hope to see you again tomorrow. Good night.